By the ancestors, is this aether drum truly reaching beyond the Great Wall of Time? If you're receiving this, prepare yourselves, for you are tuning into the final desperate gasp of the Zhou Dynasty. You're listening to The Warring States Wire, broadcasting live, or more accurately, dying heroically live, from a very, very contentious corner of ancient China in the year, well, let's just call it, the one before everything truly went to hell. My name is General Wei, and if the sheer impossible audacity of this trans-dimensional broadcast, from a moment when empires crumble and new ones rise on rivers of blood, doesn't compel you to immediately smash that subscribe button and commit to understanding the art of chaos, then frankly, your spirit lacks ambition. Do it now, before the next warlord declares martial law, and tell me if this peculiar connection holds. From what strange, peaceful realm are you listening? What year has the celestial dragon decreed for you, and what hour do these grim tidings reach you? We are taking notes for our posthumous memoirs. Now sharpen your wits. Your blade won't save you from boredom, and let's dissect the glorious fall. Can you hear that? That's the sound of an era bleeding out, a magnificent, protracted death rattle. They call this the spring and autumn period. A quaint name for a time of such delightful decay. I am what you might call a facilitator of this decay, a warlord, and this little broadcast of mine, a final whisper before the real screaming begins. You see, what is coming, what I am helping to birth, will make this age of ours look like a golden era of tranquility, so listen closely. This is the last lesson you'll get before the age of chaos truly dawns. Let me tell you about the good old days, the days of the early Zhou. It all began around the year 1046, before the Common Era. King Wu, the first of his line, was a clever man. He overthrew the Shang not just with swords and chariots, but with an idea. A brilliant, seductive idea called the Mandate of Heaven. The heavens themselves, he claimed, had grown tired of the Shang's decadence and had chosen him and his descendants to rule all under heaven. The people bought it, the nobles bought it. For a time it actually worked. The Zhou king was the son of heaven, his word as heavy as a mountain, his authority absolute. To manage his vast new territories, the first Zhou king established a feudal system. He granted lands to his relatives and loyal generals, making them dukes, marquises, and barons. In return for their fiefdoms, they owed him their military service, their tribute, and their unwavering loyalty. For centuries, this delicate dance of obligation held the kingdom together. The states were like a family, with the king as the revered patriarch. When he called, they came. When he commanded, they obeyed. It was a time of order, of ritual, of a certain predictable grandeur. Ah, the king. Once his word was law across all under heaven. Now he's mostly a very expensive trophy, a puppet on golden strings pulled by increasingly impatient warlords like myself. We send him lavish gifts, perform the proper obeisances, and then go right on about our business of annexing our weaker neighbors. His pronouncements are suggestions at best. We listen with performative reverence, and then consult our own generals and our own ambitions. He is a symbol, and symbols, my friend, are made to be manipulated. Very amusing from a distance. The irony is, the very system that gave the Zhou their strength is now the source of their undoing. Those feudal states, once loyal extensions of the king's power, have grown into their own beasts. They have their own armies, their own economies, their own insatiable appetites for more. My own state, for instance, can field more chariots than the king's royal domain, and I am not alone. The Duke of T, the Marquis of Jin, the Viscount of Chu, we are the real powers now. The king? He's a quaint relic, a reminder of a time when heaven's mandate wasn't so negotiable. We are entering a new age, an age where the old rituals are but a thin veneer over a pit of raw ambition. The niceties of the court are a farce, a stage play where we all pretend the emperor has clothes, even as we sharpen our blades in the wings. I've seen it in the eyes of my fellow vassals. That hungry look, that calculating glint that says, "Why not me? Why shouldn't I be the one to rule all under heaven? The mandate of heaven is no longer bestowed, it is taken, and the taking will be a bloody, glorious affair. What you are witnessing is the glorious decline, the magnificent fracturing of a dynasty. It is a spectacle of ambition, betrayal, and the slow, agonizing death of an idea. The old ways are crumbling to dust, and from that dust something new and terrible will rise. I intend to be at the forefront of that rise. This is the last broadcast before the Symphony of Chaos begins its grand overture, the final moment of quiet before the storm. If this glimpse into glorious decline, this peek behind the curtain of a fracturing world is appealing to you, then you are one of us. You understand that history is not written by the pious or the meek, but by the bold and the ruthless. Honor our insights, our shared understanding of the beautiful darkness to come, by subscribing now, for when the chaos descends, and it will, you'll want a guide who not only understands it, but revels in it. Click that button. The future of warfare and the remaking of a kingdom awaits. And trust me, you won't want to miss a moment of the carnage. Welcome back to the shadows. Or perhaps you never left. Smart. The world is getting brighter, you see. The fires of ambition are being stoked in every corner of this fractured kingdom, and the glare is revealing. In our last little chat, we spoke of the fading glory of the Zhou kings, those pathetic puppets on their golden strings. Today we delve into the hands that pull those strings, the hands of my esteemed colleagues, the regional lords, the dukes and marquises who were once the pillars of the dynasty and are now its most enthusiastic wrecking crew. It's a simple story, really, one of entropy, of a structure growing too large and too complacent to support its own weight. The early Zhou kings, in their wisdom or perhaps their laziness, gave away vast tracts of land to their kin and their most loyal generals. They created vassals, and for a time these vassals were a bulwark against chaos. They paid their taxes, they answered the royal summons to war, and they dutifully performed the rites that held our world together. They were the dogs on the king's leash. But here's the thing about dogs. Leave them to their own devices long enough, and they start to fancy themselves wolves. These fiefdoms, granted centuries ago, have developed their own personalities, their own cultures, their own armies, and, most dangerously of all, their own treasuries. Money, my friends, is the great equalizer. It whispers sweet seditions into the ears of even the most loyal subject. It tells them that the grain in their storehouses is their own, that the iron in their mines can be forged into their own swords for their own purposes. The transformation has been a marvel to behold, a slow, creeping poison that has finally reached the heart of the kingdom. It started subtly, a border dispute here, a punitive expedition against a barbarian tribe there, all couched in the language of loyalty, of course. We are only securing the king's borders, they would say, while conveniently expanding their own. The king, bless his impudent heart, would send his congratulations none the wiser. Or perhaps he knew and was simply too weak to object. No, the pretense has all but vanished. The masks are slipping. My fellow dukes, once they knelt, they would travel to the capital, perform the kowtow, and present their tribute with all the appropriate humility. Now they mostly just accidentally conquer their neighbors' lands. They send envoys to the king, not with tribute, but with demands. Recognize my new authority, they say. Bestow upon me a grander title. They call it requesting a promotion. I call it extortion with better calligraphy. Take my neighbor, the ever-so-pious Duke of Song. He traces his lineage back to the Shang dynasty, the very people the Zhou overthrew. He talks endlessly of virtue and righteousness, all while his armies are a plague upon the central plains. He wages war in the name of restoring order, but the only order he's interested in is the one where his boot is on the neck of all his rivals. Very ambitious, these loyal subjects, and very inconvenient for anyone trying to maintain a semblance of, well, anything. Then you have the upstarts, the states on the periphery, the so-called barbarians, the state of Chu, down in the south, for example. They were once considered a backwater, a land of savages. Now their ruler has the audacity to call himself a king. A king! He has cast off all pretense of fealty to the Zhou. And why shouldn't he? He has the army, he has the wealth, and he has the will to use them. The Zhou king can send all the angry letters he wants. They make for excellent kindling on a cold southern night. The shift has been from feudal loyalty to naked ambition. It's a game of hegemon. The most powerful duke of the moment gets to be the boss. He protects the king, which is a polite way of saying he holds him hostage. He convinces the other states to follow his lead, which is a polite way of saying he'll burn their cities to the ground if they don't. We've had a few of these hegemons already. Duke Wan of Qi, Duke Wen of Jin. They brought a temporary, brutal kind of order. But their dominance was fleeting. It rested on their personal strength. And when they died, the squabbling began anew. This is the new reality, a chessboard of shifting alliances and sudden betrayals. One day you are sworn brothers in a pact against a common enemy. The next, your brother's chariots are rolling through your fields, his soldiers looting your villages. Trust is a currency more worthless than Zhou bronze. The only thing that matters is power, the power to defend what is yours and the power to take what is not. I myself have had to adapt. My armory is no longer filled with ceremonial bronze weapons. It is filled with the cold, hard efficiency of iron. My strategists are not chosen for their knowledge of the classics, but for their understanding of deception, of flanking maneuvers, of how to turn a river red with the blood of my enemies. We are all becoming monsters. But in a world of monsters, being a man is a fatal flaw. The king, in his gilded cage, still performs the ancient rituals. He consults the oracle bones, he makes sacrifices to the ancestors, he pretends that the mandate of heaven is still a thing. But the mandate has fractured. It has splintered into 1,000 pieces, and each of us warlords has picked up a shard, convinced that we are the one destined to piece it back together in our own image. The common people, you ask? Oh, they suffer, of course. Their sons are conscripted into our endless wars. Their harvests are seized to feed our ever-growing armies. Their villages are the unfortunate scenery for our grand ambitions. But they are also the prize. The more land you control, the more peasants you have to tax and to turn into soldiers. They are the fuel for this glorious infernal engine of war. It is a brutal calculus, I admit, but it is the only one that matters anymore. The age of poetry and propriety is over. This is the age of the sword and the chariot, the age of the strong devouring the weak, the age of the vassal becoming the master. What is coming is a storm that will wash away the last vestiges of the old world, and I, for one, cannot wait to dance in the rain. Don't let our desperate cries for unity fade into the din of battle. Don't let the stories of these power-hungry dukes be forgotten. You need to understand the minds of these men, these architects of chaos. You need to see the world as we see it, a prize to be won. Subscribe now for more tales of regional power grabs, of ambition unbound, and of the slow, delicious death of an empire. This is more than just history. It is a lesson in power. And you, my discerning friend, look like a very astute student. Click the button, the abyss is calling, and you wouldn't want to miss its secrets. Do you hear that? The sound of another messenger arriving. More news from the front. Another loyal duke has decided to liberate a weaker state from its incompetent ruler. The game is afoot, and the board is drenched in blood. The old bonds of fealty are now just ropes to hang your enemies with. The titles bestowed by the king? Mere pleasantries before the slaughter. Think of the Duke of Qin, tucked away in the west. They were once horse breeders for the Zhou kings. Now they are a formidable military machine, eyeing the central plains with a predator's gaze. They have a ruthlessly efficient system of laws and a populace hardened by constant warfare against the nomadic tribes. They speak of loyalty, but their actions scream conquest. And let's not forget the intricate dance of diplomacy, the endless conferences where we all swear oaths of allegiance, knowing full well that our spies are trying to bribe each other's generals. The flowery speeches about brotherhood and shared ancestry, followed by covert operations to sabotage a rival's grain supply. It's a theater of the absurd, and we are all accomplished actors. The smaller states are crushed between the gears of our ambitions. They try to remain neutral, to play one great power against another. A fatal mistake. Neutrality is an invitation to be conquered. They are the lambs in a world of wolves, and their bleating is a dinner bell. Their only hope is to choose a master and pray they've chosen the winning side. This fragmentation is not just political, it's cultural. We are all supposed to be subjects of the Son of Heaven, but the dialects we speak are drifting apart. The customs we observe are becoming more distinct. We are no longer one people under a single king. We are a collection of warring tribes, each convinced of our own superiority. The irony is that in our quest for individual power, we are destroying the very foundation upon which that power was built. The Zhou system, for all its flaws, provided a framework of stability. It gave us a shared identity. Now, in our rush to become kings, we are ensuring that there will be no kingdom left to rule, only a wasteland of perpetual conflict. But who am I to complain? I am a product of this chaos. I thrive in it. It is the crucible in which new dynasties are forged. The old must be torn down to make way for the new, and the tearing down is such a beautiful, exhilarating process. It is a time of heroes and villains, of epic battles and cunning intrigues, a time to be alive. So, as you listen to the whispers of my spies and the clash of my soldiers' spears, remember this: you are a witness to the end of an age, the end of a dream, and the beginning of a nightmare that will reshape the world, a nightmare from which I and men like me will emerge as the new gods. The scholars will write of this time with horror and fascination. They will call it a tragic decay of virtue, but they are wrong. It is not a decay, it is a purification, a burning away of the weak, the sentimental, the obsolete. It is the natural order of things reasserting itself with sword and fire. Do you feel it? The thrill of it all? The intoxicating scent of burning banners and spilled blood? If you do, then you are ready. You are ready to see this age for what it is, a grand, bloody, and glorious spectacle, and the best is yet to come. Don't be a spectator on the sidelines of history. Join the inner circle. Subscribe to this broadcast. We will guide you through the coming darkness. We will show you where the real power lies. Don't let the future catch you unprepared. Subscribe now. Ah, that sound. The music of our new age. Not the delicate strumming of a zither in some perfumed court, but the brutal percussion of creation, the forging of a new kind of death. Welcome back to my humble broadcast, my little corner of truth in a world choking on polite lies. We've spoken of the king's fading power and the delightful ambition of my fellow dukes. Today, we get to the heart of the matter. We discuss the tools of the trade, the evolving art of killing. For war, you see, is an art form, and we, the warlords, are its most inspired artists. There was a time not so long ago when warfare was a gentleman's game, or at least a nobleman's game. Battles were fought by the aristocracy, in magnificent chariots pulled by immaculately groomed horses. It was a spectacle of bronze and honor. The chariot was the queen of the battlefield, a clattering, glorious platform from which a nobleman and his retainers could display their martial prowess. They would duel their counterparts from the opposing army, following elaborate rules of engagement. It was all very civilized. These battles of old were almost a ritual. Armies would line up in neat formations. Diviners would be consulted to choose an auspicious day. The commanders would exchange taunts and boasts. Then the chariots would charge, a thunderous, beautiful sight. The goal wasn't necessarily to annihilate the enemy, but to prove your superiority, to capture a few enemy nobles for ransom, and to accept a graceful surrender. It was a violent dance, but a dance nonetheless. How quaint that all seems now. How utterly, laughably obsolete. While my more traditionalist rivals were polishing their bronze breastplates and reciting ancient poems about heroic chariot duels, some of us were noticing a few things. First, chariots are expensive, very expensive, and they are rather useless in mountains, in marshlands, or against a well-defended city wall. They are a weapon of the flat, open plains, and this kingdom, as you may have noticed, is not entirely flat. Second, the nobility, for all their martial training and heroic posturing, are a rather limited resource. There are only so many of them to go around, and they have a distressing tendency to value their own lives. A truly revolutionary thought began to take hold in the minds of the more practical leaders. What if we armed the peasants, the countless, teeming masses of them, toiling in the fields? What if we put a spear in their hands, gave them a modicum of training, and pointed them at the enemy? The result, my friends, was a glorious revelation. Mass infantry. Armies not of hundreds, but of thousands, tens of thousands, a tide of humanity that could swarm over the battlefield, rendering the chariot obsolete. An infantryman may be individually weak, but in a vast horde he is a terrifying force. He can go where chariots cannot. He can scale walls. He can fight in the mud and the rain. And best of all, he is cheap and expendable. This shift from chariot to infantry changed everything. It democratized warfare. No longer was it the exclusive domain of the aristocracy. Now any state that could muster a large enough population could become a military power. It was no longer about breeding and heroic virtue. It was about numbers, sheer, overwhelming numbers. The state of Qin in the West understood this better than anyone. They turned their entire society into a war machine, a factory for producing soldiers, and it is terrifyingly effective. And with this new emphasis on mass infantry came a new kind of weapon. Bronze is beautiful, it gleams in the sun, it makes for lovely ceremonial vessels. But it is also soft and heavy, and its ingredients, copper and tin, are not always easy to come by. But iron, iron is a different beast entirely. It is a metal with a soul of pure, unadulterated pragmatism. It is harder than bronze, it holds a sharper edge, and it is plentiful. The earth itself is rich with it. Once we fought with bronze and honor, now it's iron, numbers, and whoever betrays their ally fastest. Very practical, less poetic perhaps, but more effective at spilling blood. An iron sword is a brutal, efficient tool for killing. An iron-tipped spear can punch through a bronze shield. An army equipped with iron is an army with a significant advantage. The clang of iron on bronze is the sound of the old world shattering. The scale of conflict has grown exponentially. The battles of the past were skirmishes compared to the wholesale slaughter of today. We no longer aim to defeat our enemies, we aim to exterminate them. Sieges of cities are no longer about extracting a surrender. They are about starving the population into submission and then putting them to the sword. The concept of total war is beginning to dawn on us. A war that is not just fought by armies, but by entire societies. And this brings me to my favorite part of the new warfare, the part that so beautifully reflects the spirit of our age: betrayal. In the old days there were oaths, treaties, alliances, sworn in solemn ceremonies with the blood of sacrificial animals. These things were considered sacred. To break an oath was to invite the wrath of the heavens. Now, an oath is merely a strategic tool, a lie to lull your enemy into a false sense of security before you plunge a dagger into his back. Alliances are no longer bonds of loyalty. They are temporary conveniences, a means to an end. Today I might ally with the state of Qi to attack the state of Wei. Tomorrow I might ally with Wei to carve up Qi. It is a dizzying, delightful dance of deception. The most successful warlord is not the bravest or the strongest, but the most cunning, the one who can anticipate his ally's betrayal and betray him first. I have seen it a dozen times. Two states join forces to attack a third. They are victorious, and then, on the very field of battle, as they are dividing the spoils, one turns on the other. It is a beautiful thing to watch, from a safe distance. It is the purest expression of self-interest. The naked ambition that has been lurking beneath the surface of our society for so long, now out in the open, for all to see. The strategists of this new age are not poets or philosophers, they are masters of deceit. Men like Sun Tzu, who writes not of honor and glory, but of deception, of spies, of psychological warfare. His words are a testament to our times. All warfare is based on deception. A simple, elegant, and devastatingly true statement. The common soldier in this new world of war is a pitiful creature. He is a pawn in our grand game, torn from his village, armed with a cheap iron weapon, and sent to die in a war he does not understand, for a cause he does not believe in. He fights not for honor, but for survival. And his life is worth less than the iron in his spear. We have learned to be creative in our cruelty. We have developed new siege engines. We have perfected the art of starvation. We have learned to use terror as a weapon to break the will of our enemies before the battle even begins. The old rituals of warfare have been replaced by a cold, calculating brutality. This is not the sport of kings. This is the butchery of nations. If you're still processing that tactical shift, if the cold, hard logic of iron and betrayal is still sinking in, then you absolutely must subscribe. You are standing on the precipice of a new era, a world forged in the crucible of this evolving brutal warfare. To understand what is coming, you must understand the tools we use and the philosophies that guide our hands. This is not a history lesson. It is a survival guide for the age of chaos. Click that subscribe button. The future is being written in blood and iron, and you deserve a front row seat. Don't be left behind in the age of bronze and honor. Join us in the glorious, terrifying now. Consider the logistics of it all. Feeding and supplying an army of tens of thousands is a monumental task. It requires a bureaucracy, a system of taxation, a network of roads and supply depots. The state that can master logistics has a decisive advantage over its rivals. War is no longer just about what happens on the battlefield. It is about the entire machinery of the state geared towards a single purpose: conquest. The psychological toll of this new warfare is immense. The old ideals are dead. The old certainties are gone. We live in a world of constant fear and suspicion. Every neighbor is a potential enemy. Every ally is a potential traitor. This is a world that breeds a special kind of man. A man who is paranoid, ruthless, and utterly devoid of sentiment. A man like me. We have even learned to weaponize the landscape itself. We divert rivers to flood our enemies' cities. We burn forests to deny them cover. We build elaborate networks of fortifications to grind their armies down. The very earth has become a battleground, a canvas for our destructive masterpieces. And what of the spirits of the ancestors, the gods that our forefathers prayed to? They seem to be silent. Or perhaps they are simply enjoying the show. Perhaps they too appreciate the raw, untamed energy of this new age. The mandate of heaven, it seems, is no longer decided by divine will, but by the sharpness of our swords and the blackness of our hearts. This is the reality of our time, a reality of blood, iron, and betrayal. It is a brutal, terrifying reality, but it is also a reality of immense opportunity. For those of us with the courage and the cunning to seize it, the prize is nothing less than the world itself. The chance to build a new dynasty from the ashes of the old. So, as the forges of my armories burn through the night, and my spies bring me whispers of my rivals' plans, I look to the future with a sense of exhilaration. The chaos is not an end, it is a beginning, a violent, bloody, and glorious beginning, and I intend to be there at the dawn of the new age, with an iron crown on my head and a mountain of skulls beneath my feet. This is the world we have made, a world where the only law is the law of the jungle. The strong eat the weak, and the cunning eat the strong. It is not a world for the faint of heart. It is a world for men who are not afraid to get their hands dirty, men who are not afraid to do what is necessary to win. If this vision of the world excites you, if it resonates with something deep within your soul, then you have found your home. You are not a sheep destined for the slaughter, you are a wolf, and you belong with the pack. Subscribe. Learn the art of war from a master. Understand the strategies of betrayal and the logic of iron. The age of chaos is upon us, and with my guidance you will not just survive it, you will profit from it. Click the button. The future belongs to us. Listen to that. The wind. It used to be that the shamans and the court astrologers would listen to the wind and tell the king what the heavens were whispering. Now the wind just howls. A long, mournful, empty sound. Welcome back, you connoisseurs of chaos. You've returned for another lesson from the front lines of a dying dynasty. We've discussed the impotent king, the ambitious dukes, and the brutal evolution of our little wars. Today, we peel back the final layer. We talk about the grand idea that once held it all together, and how it has become the most spectacular, ironic joke of all. we talk about the mandate of heaven. It was the bedrock of Zhou power, the ultimate justification for their rule. The heavens, in their infinite wisdom, chose the most virtuous ruler to be the Son of Heaven, to govern all under heaven. As long as he and his descendants ruled with justice and propriety, maintained the proper rituals, and kept the kingdom in balance, they would enjoy heaven's favor. It was a beautiful, elegant concept, a contract between the divine and the mortal, and for centuries it was an incredibly effective piece of political theater. The mandate gave the king his authority. It made rebellion not just a crime, but a sin, an act against the cosmic order itself. But there was a catch, a wonderfully dangerous loophole that the first Zhou kings, in their arrogance, overlooked. The mandate was not permanent, it could be withdrawn. If a ruler became corrupt, if he neglected his duties, if he allowed the kingdom to fall into chaos, the heavens would show their displeasure, and they had such wonderfully dramatic ways of doing so. Floods, famines, earthquakes, plagues, comets streaking across the night sky, all were seen as celestial omens, cosmic signs that the Son of Heaven was losing his grip. In the good old days, a minor flood might be explained away with a few well-placed sacrifices and some solemn proclamations. A poor harvest could be blamed on lazy officials. But what we are seeing now, this is on an entirely different scale. The Yellow River, they call it China's sorrow, and it has been earning its name with a vengeance. Entire provinces have been drowned. The floodwaters recede to reveal fields buried under silt, villages wiped from the face of the earth, and a populace starving and desperate. The granaries are empty, the peasants are eating bark, and, in some of the more enterprising regions, each other. This is not a minor omen. This is heaven screaming its disapproval. They say heaven grants the right to rule. If so, heaven must be utterly deaf these days, or perhaps it's just gotten tired of the endless bickering. I blame the bad omens, or the bad generals. Mostly the generals. The king, bless his ceremonial robes, does what he's supposed to do. He fasts, he prays, he performs the ancient sacrifices, he sends out decrees expressing his profound sorrow and his unwavering commitment to whatever it is he thinks he's in charge of. But the floods keep coming, the famines keep spreading. And in the middle of all this divine displeasure, what are we, the loyal vassals, doing? We are, of course, making things infinitely worse. We are marching our armies back and forth across the land, trampling what few crops have survived. We are conscripting the starving peasants to fight in our pointless wars. We are turning a natural disaster into a man-made apocalypse. And with every city we burn, with every field we salt, we are mocking the very idea of a heavenly mandate. The question is no longer whispered in darkened corners. It is being shouted in the open. If the Zhou king is truly the Son of Heaven, why is heaven so obviously, so spectacularly angry? The philosophical crisis is palpable. The very foundation of our world is cracking. If the king has lost the mandate, then his authority is a sham. His laws are meaningless. His title is an empty shell. And this is where it gets truly interesting. This is where men like me come in. A crisis of faith is a wonderful opportunity for a man of flexible convictions. When the people lose their faith in the old gods, they start looking for new ones. And a warlord with a large army and a string of victories starts to look very much like a man favored by heaven, doesn't he? My fellow dukes and I, we pay lip service to the king's divine right. We send him messages of condolence for the latest natural disaster. We might even send a few carts of grain for show. But in our own courts, we are quietly cultivating a different narrative. We are telling our people that we are the ones who can restore order, that we are the ones who can protect them from the chaos, that we, not the distant and ineffectual king, are the true instruments of heaven's will. It's a dangerous game, of course. To even hint at the idea that the mandate might be transferable is treason of the highest order. But the king is too weak to punish us, and the truth is, the idea is taking root. The common soldier doesn't fight for the Son of Heaven anymore. He fights for the general who feeds him, who clothes him, and who leads him to victory and plunder. His loyalty is to me, not to some distant, impotent symbol in a decaying capital. The so-called 100 schools of thought have sprung up in this fertile ground of chaos. Philosophers and thinkers wander from state to state, offering their own solutions to the crisis. The Confucians preach a return to the old ways, to ritual and filial piety, a noble sentiment, but one that is utterly useless in a world of iron and betrayal. The Mohists talk of universal love, which is a lovely idea until my army is at your gates. The Legalists, now they are the ones I find interesting. They believe in the power of strict laws and absolute authority. They understand that order is not given by heaven, but imposed by man. This philosophical ferment is a symptom of the disease. It is the frantic search for a new anchor in a world that has come untethered. The old answers no longer work. The old gods are silent. The mandate of heaven, once a mighty river, has run dry. And we are all thirsty. Thirsty for a new source of legitimacy, a new justification for power. I watch the omens just like everyone else, but I do not see the displeasure of heaven. I see an opportunity, a power vacuum. The gods have not withdrawn their favor, they have simply opened the floor for auditions. They have thrown the mandate up for grabs, and I and every other ambitious warlord in this shattered kingdom are determined to be the one to catch it. Support our very dire search for divine guidance. Understand the philosophical earthquake that is shaking the foundations of this world. You need to grasp why this crisis of faith is more powerful than any army. Hit that subscribe button before the next oracle goes mute. The gods may have abandoned the Son of Heaven, but our broadcasts will not abandon you. We will guide you through the intellectual chaos, show you how ideas can be as deadly as any sword. Subscribe now and witness the death of a divine right. It's going to be a hell of a show. The king's court is a pathetic spectacle, a swarm of astrologers and soothsayers all trying to interpret the latest disaster in a way that doesn't get them executed. They read the cracks in oracle bones, they study the flight of birds, they analyze the entrails of sacrificial animals, and they all come to the same sycophantic conclusion. The king is blameless, the heavens are merely testing us, and all will be well if we just perform one more expensive, pointless ritual. Meanwhile, in my own court, I have a more practical approach to divination. I look at the reports from my spies. I study the maps of my enemies' territories. I calculate the size of their armies and the state of their granaries. These are the omens that matter. These are the signs that tell me where the true power lies. The mandate of heaven isn't written in the stars, it's written in the muster rolls of a well-supplied army. The peasantry, in their misery, are caught between two terrors, the terror of a wrathful heaven and the terror of our marauding armies. They pray to the gods for deliverance, but their prayers go unanswered, so they turn to us. They see us, the warlords, as a more immediate, more tangible power. We may be cruel, but we are at least present. We are the ones who can either protect them or destroy them. And in a world like this, that is the only kind of divinity that matters. The concept of virtue, once so central to the idea of the mandate, has become a mockery. We all talk about virtue. We all claim to be acting in the best interests of the people, but it is a thin, transparent veil over our naked self-interest. My rivals will massacre a city and then issue a proclamation about how they have pacified the region and restored harmony. It is a language of sublime hypocrisy, and we are all fluent in it. This crisis has even infected the ancestors. The ancestral spirits were once a source of guidance and protection. Now we use them as pawns in our political games. I will claim that my ancestors have appeared to me in a dream, endorsing my latest campaign of conquest. My rival will claim that his ancestors have denounced me as a usurper. It's a battle of spectral press releases. The ultimate irony is that the Zhou themselves came to power by exploiting this very same crisis of faith. They claimed that the last Shang king was a decadent tyrant who had lost the mandate of heaven. They used floods and other disasters as proof of his unworthiness, and now the same weapon is being turned against their own descendants. History has a wonderfully vicious sense of humor. So where does that leave us? In a world without a center. A world where the ultimate source of authority has vanished. It is a terrifying prospect for some. For the old aristocracy, for the scholars who cling to the ancient texts, it is the end of the world. But for a new generation of men, for the pragmatists, the realists, the men of action, it is a moment of unprecedented opportunity. The throne is not just empty in a practical sense, it is empty in a metaphysical sense. The position of Son of Heaven is vacant, and all of us, the major players in this bloody game, are secretly, or not so secretly, applying for the job. We are all making our case, not with words or rituals, but with iron and blood and the sheer, undeniable fact of our power. Do you see it now? The full scope of the collapse? It is not just a political or a military crisis. It is a crisis of the soul, a crisis of belief, and it is from the depths of this crisis that the next dynasty will be born. It will not be a dynasty chosen by a silent heaven. It will be a dynasty forged in the fires of our ambition, a dynasty built on the ruins of the old faith. Do not be fooled by the pronouncements of the king or the prayers of the priests. The gods are not listening. The mandate is a broken reed. The only thing that matters now is the will to power, the will to impose your own order on the chaos. If you find this truth liberating rather than terrifying, then you are ready for what is to come. Subscribe. Become an acolyte of the new reality. Let us guide you through the twilight of the gods. Join us. The future is a blank page, and we are holding the pen. Another philosopher has sent me his treatise on how to solve all the world's problems. This one seems to believe the answer lies in a more precise arrangement of wind chimes. It's astonishing. The kingdom is on fire, and these men just keep writing. Welcome back to the only broadcast that tells you the truth from behind the lines of this glorious self-inflicted apocalypse. We've talked about the crumbling throne, the ambitious warlords, the evolution of our bloody craft, and the silence of the gods. Today, we turn to the latest symptom of our societal disease, the plague of philosophers. The philosophers. Oh, they're everywhere. Every court, every city, every dusty crossroad, it seems, has a wandering thinker with a long beard and an even longer list of grievances against the modern world. They are the intellectual vultures circling the dying carcass of the Zhou Dynasty, each hoping to pick out a tasty morsel of truth, or at least to attract a wealthy patron. They call this the time of the 100 schools of thought, which is a rather generous way of saying 100 different quacks are all trying to sell their own brand of snake oil. It's a natural consequence of the chaos, I suppose. When the world stops making sense, people become desperate for anyone who claims to have an answer. And these philosophers are more than happy to oblige. They scurry from one court to another, seeking an audience with men like me, promising that their particular brand of wisdom is the key to restoring order, defeating my enemies, and making the harvests grow on time. It's a buyer's market for utopian schemes. Let's start with the most famous of them, that meddlesome busybody from the state of Lu, Master Kong, Confucius, as he likes to be called. He's built quite a following with his talk of returning to the old ways. He believes that the root of all our problems is a lack of virtue, a turning away from the rituals and the filial piety that made the early Zhou so great. He wants a world governed by benevolence, righteousness, and a strict adherence to social hierarchy, a world where everyone knows their place and plays their part. It's a lovely thought, truly, a world of gentlemen rulers who lead by moral example, where the people are so inspired by their leader's virtue that they spontaneously become good themselves. The problem is, it's a complete fantasy. I have yet to meet a rival warlord who was so moved by my benevolence that he laid down his arms. In my experience, a well-placed iron spear is a far more effective tool of persuasion than a well-turned moral aphorism. Confucius and his followers are nostalgic dreamers, chasing the ghost of a world that probably never even existed. Then you have the opposite end of the spectrum, the Taoists. These fellows, inspired by some mythical old master named Lao Tzu, have taken a good look at the chaos and come to a rather radical conclusion: do nothing. They believe that all our striving, our ambition, our attempts to impose order on the world are the source of our suffering. The solution, they say, is to withdraw, to embrace the Tao, the natural, effortless flow of the universe, to be like water, yielding and yet powerful. One says love everyone, another says rule with an iron fist, another says just give up and walk into the forest. All very profound. None of it stops the fighting, but it makes for lively dinner conversations, if you still have dinner. The Taoists would have me disband my armies, melt down my iron swords, and spend my days contemplating the shape of a cloud. It's a tempting idea, I admit, especially on days when the casualty reports are particularly high. But then I remember that my neighbor, the Duke of Qi, is not likely to have a similar epiphany. My woe-wee would be his wonderful opportunity. Now let's talk about the Mohists, a curious bunch led by a man named Mosey. They are all about practicality and universal love. They believe that one should love all people equally, without regard for family or station. They are staunch opponents of aggressive warfare, seeing it as the ultimate waste of resources and human life. They are skilled craftsmen and engineers, often traveling to besiege cities to help them build defensive fortifications. I have a certain professional respect for their engineering skills. They know how to build a good wall. But their philosophy, universal love, it's a preposterous notion. My love is not universal, it is very specific. I love my family, I love my state, I love my army, and I express that love by ensuring they have the resources and the security they need, and that, unfortunately, often requires me to engage in what the Mohists would call aggressive warfare. It's a tragic irony. To protect the ones you love, you must be willing to kill the ones you don't. But of all the schools, the ones I find most refreshing in their honesty are the Legalists. They are the true realists of our time. They have no illusions about human nature. They believe that people are inherently selfish, lazy, and greedy. They laugh at the Confucian idea of ruling by virtue. They scoff at the Taoist notion of effortless action. They see the Moist ideal of universal love as a dangerous absurdity. The Legalists believe in one thing and one thing only: power. Absolute, centralized, and ruthlessly enforced power. Their solution to the chaos is simple: a strict, detailed, and inescapable set of laws applicable to everyone from the lowest peasant to the highest nobleman. The laws are not meant to be just or moral, they are meant to be effective. They are designed to channel the selfish energies of the people towards the interests of the state. They advocate a system of rewards and punishments that is swift, certain, and severe. A farmer who exceeds his quota is rewarded. A soldier who disobeys an order is executed on the spot, along with his entire family. It is a brutal, terrifying, and undeniably effective system. The Legalists understand that you do not beg for order, you do not pray for it, you impose it. They are not interested in making people good, they are interested in making them obedient. I keep a few legalist scholars in my court. They make my Confucian advisors very uncomfortable, which I find endlessly amusing. The Confucians talk about what people should be, the legalists talk about what people are, and in my line of work, it is far more useful to deal with the world as it is, not as we wish it were. These different schools are all vying for influence, all trying to sell their vision to the powerful. The philosophical debates that rage in our courts are a microcosm of the larger war being fought on the battlefields. It is a war of ideas, a war for the very soul of our civilization. Will we be a society based on tradition and virtue, on mystical quietism, on universal love, or on the cold, hard logic of absolute power? The answer, I suspect, will not be found in a book or a scroll. It will be written in blood. These philosophers, for all their differences, share one common flaw. They all believe that they have the answer. They all believe that their particular system can put an end to the chaos. But the chaos is not a problem to be solved. It is a condition to be managed. It is the new reality. And the only true philosophy for our time is the philosophy of the sword, the philosophy of survival, the philosophy of victory. Help us understand these perplexing new philosophies. Don't get lost in the fog of their debates. You need a guide who can cut through the intellectual posturing and show you what these ideas mean in the real world of power politics. Subscribe now. We will dissect these competing ideologies, show you their strengths, their weaknesses, and their potential for both salvation and tyranny. The battle for the future is being fought in the minds of men as well as on the fields of war. Join us, and you will understand both fronts of this epic struggle. The sheer arrogance of it all is what truly gets me. Each of these thinkers is convinced that they and they alone have discovered the fundamental secret of human society. They remind me of a group of blind men describing an elephant. One touches the leg and says it is a tree. Another touches the tail and says it is a rope. Another touches the tusk and says it is a spear. They are all right in their own limited way, and they are all wrong. The Confucians, with their endless talk of the gentleman, are trying to build a palace on a foundation of quicksand. They believe that a few good men can redeem a fallen world, but they forget that for every gentleman there are 1,000 scoundrels, and the scoundrels are usually better armed. Their philosophy is a beautiful, fragile work of art, destined to be shattered by the first swing of a battle-axe. The Taoists, in their blissful detachment, are like men who, upon seeing their house on fire, decide to meditate on the impermanence of all things. Their wisdom may be profound, but it is the wisdom of the grave. It is a philosophy for hermits and recluses, not for rulers and generals. The Tao may be the way of the universe, but the way of my army is the way of the disciplined advance and the overwhelming assault. The Mohists, with their boundless compassion, are the most tragically naive of all. They believe that they can reason their way to peace. They will march into a warlord's camp and try to persuade him that war is illogical and unprofitable. They are trying to put out a forest fire with a teacup. Their love for humanity is admirable, but it is a love that is utterly powerless against the hatred and the fear that drive men to kill each other. The Legalists, on the other hand, have no such illusions. They see the fire and they want to control it, to channel its destructive energy for their own purposes. They are the only ones who truly understand the nature of power in our age. But their system is a brittle one. It is a cage. And people, no matter how cowed, will always yearn to be free. A state built on fear alone is a state that is perpetually on the verge of revolt. So I listen to them all. I take from each of them what is useful. From the Confucians, I take the language of legitimacy, the rituals that can give my rule a veneer of respectability. From the Taoists, I take the strategy of strategic patience, of knowing when to act and when to wait. From the Mohists, I take their siegecraft, and from the Legalists, I take their understanding of control and discipline. I am a pragmatist, a synthesist. I am the embodiment of our age. A man who will use any tool, any idea, any philosophy to achieve his goals. The philosophers see me as an uncultured brute, a symptom of the disease they are trying to cure. They do not understand that I am the cure. I am the strong hand that will cauterize the wounds of this kingdom. I am the one who will impose an order that is not based on dusty old books or fanciful new ideas, but on the undeniable reality of a sharp sword and a disciplined army. The future will not be decided by a debate. It will be decided by a war that will be won by the ruler who can best harness the energies of his people, who can best organize his state, who can best wield the tools of violence. And when that war is over, the winner will hire the philosophers to write the history, to explain why his victory was not just inevitable, but just. And they will be happy to do so, for philosophers, like everyone else, prefer to be on the winning side. Do you feel the ground shifting beneath your feet? Do you see how this war of words is as critical as the war of swords? Then you must not be left behind. Subscribe to this channel. We are your intelligence briefing on the intellectual battlefield. We will arm you with the knowledge to see these philosophies for what they are, weapons in a struggle for absolute power. Click that button. The future is forged in the crucible of ideas and iron. Be there when it happens. Subscribe. Pull up a seat. Warm yourself by the fire. This fire, incidentally, is fueled by the remnants of what was, just a few days ago, the proud gate of the city of Yongke. The weeping you hear? That's just the local color? Welcome back to the final broadcast before the true darkness descends. We have journeyed through the philosophical madhouse and the crumbling edifice of divine right. Tonight we get our hands dirty. We talk about the primary method of territorial expansion in our enlightened age. We talk about the siege. The open field battle, for all its bloody charm, is becoming a rarity. It's too unpredictable, too reliant on the fickle courage of men. No, the real work of conquest, the systematic dismantling of your enemy's power, happens at the walls of their cities. Cities are the hearts of the states. They hold the granaries, the armories, the artisans, and the nobles. To take a city is to cut out your enemy's heart and feast upon it. It is the ultimate expression of dominance. And so we have become experts in the art of the siege. It is a slow, patient, and exquisitely cruel art form. It begins with encirclement. My army arrives and surrounds the city, cutting it off from the outside world. No food gets in, no messengers get out. The city becomes an island, and my army is the sea, slowly, inexorably rising. We build our own camps, sometimes complete with walls and moats, a grim mirror of the city we are about to strangle. Sieges, my favorite. Starve them, burn them, then hack them to bits. Very efficient, less glorious than the poems suggest, more messy. And the screams are quite distracting. The first phase is a war of the mind. My soldiers will shout insults at the defenders on the walls. They will parade captured soldiers from previous battles, perhaps missing a few limbs, to show the defenders their inevitable fate. We might launch the heads of their captured comrades over the walls with our new catapults. A delightful innovation, the catapult. It adds a certain flair to psychological warfare. Then the hunger begins. This is the part that requires patience. A well-stocked city can hold out for months, but no city is prepared for an army that is willing to wait. The grain rations get smaller. The people start to eat the rats, then the leather from their own armor. I have heard tales from sieges where parents have, exchanged children so as not to have to eat their own. It is remarkable what hunger can do to a person's principles. While the city starves, we are not idle. My engineers, some of whom may have learnt a thing or two from those clever mohists, are busy building our tools of persuasion. Siege towers, great wooden beasts that can roll up to the walls and disgorge my best warriors onto the ramparts. Battering rams with iron heads to pound the gates into splinters. We dig tunnels, trying to collapse a section of the wall from beneath. It is a constant grinding pressure, a battle of engineering and attrition. Sometimes we grow impatient, or we want to make a point, and then we attempt a direct assault. This is a bloody, chaotic business. My soldiers, driven by promises of plunder, will swarm the walls with scaling ladders. The defenders will rain down arrows, rocks, and boiling pitch. The screams are deafening. The moat will turn red. The ground beneath the walls will become a carpet of the dead and dying. It is a terrible, wasteful business. But sometimes a necessary one. But the most effective weapon in a siege is not the sword, or the ram, or the tower. It is despair. The moment when the defenders on the wall look at their starving families, at their dwindling supplies, at the relentless, patient army surrounding them, and they realize that there is no hope. That is the moment the city truly falls. The gates may still be standing, but the will to resist is broken. And when the gates are finally breached, or when the defenders finally surrender, that is when the real work begins. The sack of a city is a necessary part of the process. It is the reward for my soldiers, their payment for months of hardship and danger. They are let loose upon the city, and for a day or 2 or 3 there are no laws. They take what they want: food, wine, women, gold, anything of value. It is a frenzy of pent-up violence and greed. The slaughter is often indiscriminate. My orders may be to spare the artisans, to imprison the nobles for ransom, and to kill only the soldiers who resist. But in the chaos of a sacked city, such distinctions are often lost. Old grudges are settled. The frustrations of the siege are vented. The screams of the dying are the final triumphant chorus of my victory. It is not pretty, but it is effective. It sends a message to other cities. Resist me, and this will be your fate. The psychological impact of this kind of warfare on the populace is profound. We are creating a generation of people who have known nothing but fear. They have seen their cities burned. They have seen their families slaughtered. They live in a constant state of anxiety, never knowing when the next army will appear on the horizon. They have learned to be silent, to be obedient, to do whatever it takes to survive. The old bonds of community are dissolving. In a besieged city, your neighbor is not your friend, he is your rival for the last handful of grain. The social order collapses, the strong prey on the weak, the rich try to hoard their supplies, the poor starve. It is a perfect laboratory for observing the true nature of humanity, stripped of all its civilized pretenses. The landscape of our world is changing. It is becoming a landscape of fortified cities and desolate countryside. The peasants flee the fields and huddle behind the walls, hoping for safety. But there is no safety. The walls just make them a more convenient target, a more concentrated resource to be plundered. We have turned our cities into traps. And for what? For a line on a map to be redrawn? For me to be able to call myself the ruler of a few more square miles of devastated land? For me to have a larger pool of starving peasants from which to draw my next army? It is a grand, glorious, and utterly insane cycle of violence. And I am its master. If you're finding this delightfully brutal, if the cold, hard calculus of siege warfare appeals to your pragmatic soul, then you know what to do. Smash that subscribe button now. You need to understand the mechanics of this destruction to truly grasp the age that is dawning. This is not just a story of swords and soldiers. It is a story of logistics, of psychology, of terror. Subscribe and you will receive the unvarnished truth about the art of breaking cities and the men who practice it. The aftermath of a successful siege is a landscape of ghosts. The silence that falls after the days of screaming is more chilling than the noise itself. The streets are littered with the dead. The buildings are blackened shells. The survivors are hollow-eyed, traumatized creatures who will never be the same again. And I ride through the ruins, the conquering hero, the bringer of a new, brutal order. My soldiers, once the siege is over, are often a problem in themselves. They are men who have been steeped in violence, who have been rewarded for their savagery. It is not easy to turn them back into disciplined soldiers. They are often restless, eager for the next opportunity to plunder. And so, the only way to keep them under control is to point them at the next city. The only way to manage the violence is to export it. We have developed a whole lexicon for this kind of warfare. We talk of total encirclement, of tunneling assaults, of psychological exhaustion. We have turned the act of mass murder into a science. We study the weak points in a city's defenses. We calculate how long their food supplies will last. We have transformed human misery into a series of strategic variables. The poets and the scribes will write of these events in epic terms. They will talk of heroic charges and noble sacrifices. They will not write about the smell of a besieged city, the smell of unburied bodies, of disease, of filth, of hopelessness. They will not write about the sound of a child crying from hunger. These are the details that are best left out of the glorious histories. But you, my select audience, you deserve the truth. You need to understand that the foundation of the new order we are building is not made of stone and virtue. It is made of bones and terror. The power of a warlord is directly proportional to the number of cities he has sacked, the number of people he has terrorized into submission. This is the price of unity. This is the cost of forging a new empire from the fragments of the old one. It requires a level of ruthlessness that would have been unthinkable a few generations ago. It requires a willingness to see human beings not as people, but as obstacles, as resources, as tools. It requires a man who can order the slaughter of a city and then sleep soundly at night. So when you see the walls of a great city, do not see them as a symbol of security. See them for what they are: a cage, a tomb, a waiting feast for an army of wolves. And when you see a warlord like me, do not see me as a mere conqueror. See me as a force of nature, a storm that is sweeping away the old world to clear the ground for the new. The choice is simple. You can be one of the people cowering behind the walls, praying to silent gods for a deliverance that will never come. Or you can be one of us, one of the ones who understands that in this new age, power is the only thing that matters, that the only virtue is victory, the only sin is defeat. If this brutal honesty speaks to you, if you are not afraid to look into the abyss, then your place is with us. Subscribe now. Do not hesitate. The walls of the old world are crumbling. The age of sieges is upon us. You will need a guide who knows how to navigate the ruins and how to profit from them. Click that button. The slaughter awaits, and it would be a shame for you to miss it. Come in, come in. Don't mind the noise. That's just the sound of progress. Or, more accurately, the sound of my blacksmiths turning peasant plowshares into spears. An unfortunate but necessary recycling program. You find me in my study, a small oasis of tranquility in a world that has gone utterly, irrevocably mad. Welcome back to our final series of broadcasts. You have learned of the crumbling dynasty, the scheming dukes, the new arts of war, the silent heavens, the babbling philosophers, and the brutal reality of the siege. Tonight, we discuss a matter of supreme importance, upholding civilization. It is a common misconception among the uninitiated that a warlord's life is all mud, blood, and shouting, an endless, dreary campaign. They are, of course, hopelessly wrong. War is my trade, yes, but the purpose of that trade is to afford this: the quiet moment, the cup of warmed wine, the feel of fine silk beneath my hands. One must maintain standards even when the world is ending, especially when the world is ending. What is the point of conquering a kingdom if you must live like a barbarian to do it? My domain is an island of order in a sea of chaos. Beyond my borders, the roads are infested with bandits, the fields lie fallow, and the people are starving. But here, within the reach of my armies, the harvests are collected, the markets are open, and the laws are enforced. My laws, of course. They are strict, and the punishments for breaking them are memorable, but they provide a stability that is a rare and precious commodity in these troubled times. This stability is not a matter of charity. It is a matter of strategic necessity. A well-fed peasant is a peasant who can be taxed. A secure merchant is a merchant who will bring valuable goods to my cities. A stable domain is a domain that can support the army that protects it. It is a delicate, self-sustaining ecosystem of coercion and control. And I am the master gardener. And what a demanding garden it is! The banquets still need wine, the best vintages from the vineyards of the East. The courtesans still demand their silk, the brightest colors, the most intricate weaves. My generals, after a successful campaign, expect to be rewarded with lavish gifts of bronze and gold. These things are not mere luxuries. They are the currency of power. They are the symbols that prove that I am a man of substance, a man to be followed, a man to be feared. One must project an image of effortless superiority. My court must be a dazzling spectacle of wealth and culture. The music must be exquisite, the poetry must be refined, the conversation witty and insightful. When envoys from other states visit, they must be overwhelmed by my prosperity. They must go back to their own perpetually anxious masters and report that my power is so vast, my resources so deep, that I can afford this bubble of decadent civilization in the midst of a maelstrom. It is a form of psychological warfare, and often more effective than 1,000 chariots. Of course, this performance is ruinously expensive. The wine does not magically appear in my cellars, the silk does not weave itself, the gold does not leap from the earth into my treasury. It all comes from the land, from the sweat of the peasants, from the profits of the merchants, from the plunder of conquered cities. My peace is paid for by other people's turmoil. My luxury is paid for by other people's suffering. A fair trade, I think. And then there are the spies. My little whispers in the dark. The most essential and most expensive of all my luxuries. Knowledge is power, and in this age of betrayal, it is the only power that truly matters. I have spies in every major court in the kingdom. They are eunuchs in my rivals' harems. They are serving maids pouring wine at their secret councils. They are disgruntled generals, willing to sell their masters' plans for a few pieces of silver. The spies still demand their silver, and their demands are always met, for the information they provide is priceless. It tells me when a rival is weak. It tells me when an ally is about to betray me. It tells me where to strike, when to strike, and how to strike with the most devastating effect. My network of spies is the nervous system of my domain. It is what allows me to anticipate threats, to exploit opportunities, and to stay one step ahead in this deadly game. It's a heavy burden being a warlord, the constant vigilance, the endless calculations, the ruthless decisions. Every day, I must decide who to reward and who to punish, who to trust and who to kill. I must balance the needs of my army with the needs of my people. I must project an aura of unshakable confidence, even when my own spies tell me that an assassin may be lurking in the shadows of my own court. There is a terrible loneliness to my position. I am surrounded by people, generals, ministers, scholars, courtesans, servants, but I can trust none of them, not completely. They are all orbiting my power, drawn by its warmth, but they all have their own agendas, their own ambitions. My closest general could be plotting to replace me. My most beautiful concubine could be a spy for my deadliest enemy. It is exhausting, but I would not trade it for anything. For this is what it means to be alive in this age, to be at the center of the storm, to be one of the few men who are not just victims of history, but its authors. The future of this land is being written now, not by the king, not by the gods, not by the philosophers, but by me, and a handful of men like me. And I intend for my chapter to be the longest, and the most glorious. So yes, I will continue to host my banquets, I will continue to listen to my musicians, I will continue to surround myself with beauty and luxury, for these things are not a distraction from the chaos. They are the reason for it. They are the prize. They are the proof that in a world of decay I am a force of creation. My creation. Don't let our desperate pursuit of comfort, our struggle to maintain a sliver of civilization be in vain. You need to understand the engine that drives this conflict. It's not just about land and titles. It's about the desperate human need to build something beautiful and lasting, even if you have to build it on a foundation of corpses. Hit that subscribe button, support our very noble, very expensive endeavor. You will gain an appreciation for the finer points of tyranny, the complex logistics of luxury, and the heavy silken burden of a warlord's crown. The logistics are a nightmare. I have ministers whose sole job is to track the flow of resources. The grain from the western provinces must be transported to feed the army in the east. The iron from the northern mines must be brought to the forges in the south. The salt from the coast must be distributed throughout my domain. A single broken bridge, a single bandit raid can disrupt the entire system. It requires a level of administrative genius that would make the old Zhou kings weep with envy. And then there is the matter of internal security. My own people are a constant source of concern. A famine, a flood, a particularly heavy tax, and the embers of resentment can quickly be fanned into the flames of rebellion. So I must maintain a delicate balance. I must squeeze them hard enough to fund my ambitions, but not so hard that they break. And I must have my own network of spies within my own domain to root out dissent before it can become a threat. The court itself is a viper's nest of intrigue. My ministers are constantly jockeying for favor. My sons are already eyeing my throne, calculating the odds of my demise. I must play them off against each other, foster rivalries, and ensure that no single one of them becomes powerful enough to challenge me. It is a game of chess where all the pieces are alive, and all of them are armed. The luxury, you see, is also a tool of control. By bestowing lavish gifts, I create obligations. By providing a life of ease and pleasure, I make my followers dependent on me. They will not risk betraying me because they know that life outside my favor is a life of poverty and danger. The silken ropes that bind them to me are stronger than any iron chain. There are days when the weight of it all is almost too much to bear. The endless reports, the constant stream of petitioners, the knowledge that a single mistake, a single moment of weakness could bring it all crashing down. On those days, I sometimes think of the Taoist sages wandering off into the mountains to live a life of blissful obscurity. But then I look at what I have built, this island of order, this vibrant, thriving, and utterly terrified domain, and I know that I could never give it up. It is my creation, my masterpiece, a testament to my will, my ambition, and my utter refusal to bow to the chaos that consumes the rest of the world. So let the philosophers prattle on about their utopias. Let the king pray to his silent gods. Let my rivals exhaust themselves in their petty squabbles. I will be here, in my court, sipping my wine, listening to my musicians, and planning my next move. For I have understood the fundamental truth of our age, that civilization is not a gift from the heavens. It is a prize that must be won and defended, with fire and sword. You, my audience, are privileged to witness this, to see behind the curtain, to understand the grim mechanics of power and the exquisite burdens of leadership. You are learning the lessons that will define the coming age. Do not take this education for granted. Embrace it, support it, subscribe. For the world is burning down and we are the ones holding the torches, and you have a front row seat to the most spectacular bonfire in history. Click the button. The banquet is about to begin. A storm, how fitting. It seems the heavens have decided to provide the appropriate atmosphere for our final broadcast. You have been a patient audience, listening to my musings on the grand theatre of our age, the collapsing dynasty, the scheming lords, the bloody ballets of war and diplomacy, the silence of the gods, the cacophony of the philosophers, the brutality of the siege, and the delicate art of maintaining my own exquisite comforts. Tonight we turn our gaze downward. We speak of the mud upon which this grand stage is built. We speak of the common people. The peasants, bless their simple tax-paying hearts. They are the foundation of everything, the bedrock of the kingdom. They are the ones who till the soil, who grow the grain, who weave the cloth. They are the silent, teeming masses whose labor fuels our ambitions, pays for our wars, and fills our wine cups. They are, in short, the most valuable and most brutally exploited resource we have. It is a wonderfully efficient arrangement. Their lives are governed by the seasons, by the rhythm of planting and harvesting. They want so little: a patch of land to work, a roof that doesn't leak too badly, enough food to see them through the winter, the chance to raise their children and to honor their ancestors. They mostly just want to grow their millet in peace. A simple, unambitious dream, and that is precisely what makes them so vulnerable. We, the warlords, mostly just want their millet. And their sons. Very inconvenient for them. Every spring my recruiting officers go out into the villages. They are not asking for volunteers, they are enforcing a quota. Each village must provide a certain number of able-bodied men for my army. The sons are torn from their families, their farming tools replaced with a cheap iron spear, and they are marched off to fight in wars they do not understand, for causes they do not care about. The farewells are always emotional. The weeping mothers, the stoic, terrified fathers, the young men trying to look brave as they are chained together and led away. I have found it is best not to attend these recruitment drives in person. It spoils the appetite. But the men are necessary. My ambitions require a constant supply of fresh bodies to throw at the walls of my enemies' cities. The individual peasant is expendable. The peasant class as a whole is indispensable. And for those who are not taken for the army, there are other burdens. Taxes. Oh, the endless, creative and utterly crushing taxes. There is the tax on the land, the tax on the harvest, the tax on the salt, the tax on the market. I have a minister whose sole job is to invent new taxes. He is a genius in his own dark way. We must fund our armies after all, and the peasants are the only ones who actually produce anything of value. The result of this constant drain of manpower and resources is, predictably, famine. The fields lie fallow because the men who should be working them are dying on some distant battlefield. The granaries are empty because the tax collectors have taken it all. The people are left to starve. It is a recurring problem, one that my more sentimental advisors are always wringing their hands about. But famine, like war, can be a useful tool. A starving populace is a docile populace. They are too weak, too preoccupied with their own survival to think about rebellion. Then there is the displacement. When my army marches through a territory or when a rival's army marches through mine, the peasants are caught in the middle, their villages are burned, their livestock is slaughtered, their food is stolen. They flee with nothing but the clothes on their backs, becoming a tide of refugees, clogging the roads, dying of hunger and disease. They are the human debris of our conflicts. Their powerlessness is absolute. They have no voice in our councils, they have no say in our decisions. They are the pawns in our Game of Thrones. Their lives are forfeit to our ambitions. They are born to suffer, to serve, and to die, all for the greater glory of men like me. It is the natural order of things, the strong rule, the weak submit, and the peasants are, by their very nature, weak. Occasionally their desperation boils over. A village will rise up, kill a tax collector, and declare themselves in rebellion. It is a foolish, futile gesture. My response is always the same, swift, overwhelming, and utterly merciless. I will send a detachment of my professional soldiers. They will surround the village. They will kill every man, woman, and child. They will burn the village to the ground and sow the fields with salt. It is important to make an example, to remind the others of the price of defiance. The psychological toll of this existence is etched on their faces. They live in a state of perpetual fear. Fear of the recruiting officer, fear of the tax collector, fear of the famine, fear of the invading army, fear of us. They have learned to be silent, to be invisible, to expect nothing and to be grateful for it. They are a people without hope, and that is just how I need them to be. And yet, sometimes I wonder. I see them in the fields as I ride by, their backs bent, their faces weathered, and I see a resilience that is almost inhuman. They endure, they suffer, they die, but they endure. They cling to their families, to their traditions, to their small, pathetic plots of land with a tenacity that is both admirable and infuriating. They are like the weeds that grow in the cracks of a ruined wall. No matter how many times you cut them down, they always seem to grow back. This is the fuel for our fire, the endless, anonymous suffering that makes our glory possible, the millions of lives broken and discarded so that a few of us can have our names written in the history books. Do not ever forget this. When you hear the poets sing of my great victories, when you see the monuments I have built to my own greatness, remember the foundation upon which they are built, a foundation of peasant bone. If you can stomach this truth, if you are not afraid to look at the true cost of power, then this broadcast is for you. You are not one of the sentimental fools who believes in the goodness of man. You are a realist, and you deserve a guide who will show you the world as it is, not as it should be. Subscribe now. Witness the plight of the common man and understand why their suffering is the necessary precondition for our greatness. This is the final, most important lesson. Do not dare to miss it. The irony is that we, the aristocracy, are utterly dependent on them. We pretend to be a class apart, a race of superior beings, but without their labor we would starve. Without their bodies we would have no armies. Without their taxes we would have no wealth. We are like ticks on a dying animal, gorging ourselves on its blood, even as we hasten its demise. The philosophers, in their infinite wisdom, have much to say about the peasants. The Confucians pity them and urge us to rule them with a benevolent hand so as to win their loyalty. The legalists see them as a resource to be managed, a herd to be controlled with a system of harsh laws and punishments. The Mohists love them in their abstract universal way. The Taoists would have them return to a state of primitive simplicity. None of them, however, have ever had to actually govern them. Governing the peasantry is like trying to herd cats. They are masters of a certain kind of passive resistance. They will hide their grain when the tax collector comes. They will feign illness when the recruiting officer arrives. They will work just hard enough to meet their quota, and no harder. They have a deep ingrained distrust of authority, and for good reason. They know that we are not their protectors, we are their predators. I've tried various methods to increase their productivity. I have introduced iron plowshares, I have implemented new systems of irrigation, I have offered rewards for bumper harvests, but these efforts are always undermined by the relentless demands of war. For every step forward we take in agriculture, we take 2 steps back in military expenditure. It is a paradox that even my cleverest ministers cannot solve. And so the cycle continues. War leads to famine, famine leads to unrest, unrest leads to brutal suppression, and the need for suppression leads to more war. It is a perfect self-sustaining engine of misery, and I am its chief engineer. Sometimes, in the dead of night, when the wine has worn off and the flattery of my courtiers has faded, I am haunted by their faces. The faces of the young men I have sent to die. The faces of the starving children in the villages I have plundered. They are the ghosts at my banquet, the silent accusers in my court of triumphs. But then the morning comes, and with it the reports from my spies, the plans for the next campaign, the endless, intoxicating business of power, and the ghosts recede. For sentiment is a luxury that a man in my position cannot afford. To feel their pain would be to lose my edge. To empathize with their suffering would be to question the very foundation of my existence. And that is a rabbit hole down which I dare not go. So I remain detached. I see them not as people but as numbers. So many mouths to feed, so many bodies to conscript, so many households to tax. It is the only way to stay sane, the only way to do what must be done, the only way to win. This is the final truth of our age, the great divorce between the rulers and the ruled. We live in different worlds. We speak different languages. We dream different dreams. And my world is built upon the ruins of theirs. My dream is their nightmare. This is your last chance, your final opportunity to look upon the unvarnished face of power before the age of chaos swallows us all. Subscribe. Join this fellowship of realists, we who are unafraid to see the world for what it is, we who understand that history is not a morality play but a butcher's bill, and the price of greatness is always paid in the blood of the innocent. Click that button. The storm is here, and there is no shelter to be found, only the cold, hard truth, and the will to survive it. Another treaty, another solemn oath sworn over the blood of a sacrificial ox, another grand pronouncement of eternal friendship and mutual defense. It's all very moving, if you're a fool. Welcome back, my students of the abyss, to what may be our final lesson before the real curriculum of chaos begins. We have traversed the crumbling landscapes of faith, war, and society. Tonight, we enter the most treacherous terrain of all, the glittering, poisoned world of diplomacy. We shall speak of alliances. Alliances, lovely things, the lifeblood of statecraft in our enlightened age. In theory, they are a bastion of stability, a way for like-minded states to band together for protection against a common foe. In practice, they are temporary, cynical, and about as reliable as a drunken charioteer. They are webs of intrigue, spun with threads of fear and greed, and I, my friends, am a master weaver. The process is always the same. It begins with an exchange of envoys. Flowery letters are sent filled with praise for my virtuous rule and my magnificent army. My rival, or potential partner, will express his deep admiration for my everything, really. He will lament the state of the world, the weakness of the Zhou king, and the aggression of some other unfortunate state that we both happen to dislike at the moment. It is a carefully choreographed dance of flattery. Then comes the summit. We meet on neutral ground or in the court of the more powerful lord, which is usually me. We feast, we exchange lavish gifts. We watch dancers and listen to poets who have been carefully instructed to compose verses about the historic significance of our meeting. All of this is designed to create an illusion of warmth, of camaraderie, of a genuine bond between two great leaders. It is a magnificent performance. The heart of the matter is the treaty itself, a beautiful document, written on strips of bamboo in the most elegant calligraphy. It will detail our mutual obligations. An attack on one is an attack on both. We will support each other with troops and grain in times of war. We will not harbor each other's traitors. We will respect each other's borders. Clause after clause of meticulously worded promises. We sign it, we swear our oaths, and we seal the agreement by drinking the blood of a freshly slaughtered animal mixed with wine. It's all very dramatic. And for a time it might even work. If our interests are perfectly aligned, if the threat from a third party is great enough, the alliance may hold, for a season, perhaps even a year. We will launch our joint campaigns. We will coordinate our armies. We will share the spoils of victory. It can be a beautiful and profitable partnership. But there is always a serpent in this garden, and that serpent is opportunity. Alliances are built on sand because the landscape is constantly shifting. My ally today may become my obstacle tomorrow. The state we joined forces to crush might be a useful pawn in a new game. Or perhaps my ally simply decides your land looks rather inviting, that the strategic mountain pass on my side of the new border would be much more secure in his hands. Then it's just more bloodshed. We've mastered the art of smiling while sharpening our daggers. The moment of betrayal is a delicate thing. It is rarely a dramatic, open declaration of war. That would be uncivilized. No, it is usually much more subtle. A shipment of grain that is unavoidably delayed. A contingent of troops that arrives a week after the decisive battle has been lost. A sudden, inexplicable outbreak of illness among the generals who are supposed to be leading the joint attack. My ally will send letters of profound regret and apology. I will send letters of understanding and sympathy. And we will both know with perfect clarity that the alliance is dead. Trust is a commodity more precious and more rare than jade. I trust my generals only as far as I can see them. I trust my ministers only as long as I am paying them more than my enemies are. I trust my sons not at all. So why would I trust a rival warlord, a man whose every waking moment is consumed by the same ambition that drives me? To trust an ally is to hand him the knife he will use to slit your throat. And so we rely on other methods to secure our agreements. Coercion, fear, hostages. It has become quite fashionable to seal an alliance by exchanging sons or daughters. My heir will go to live in my new ally's court, and his will come to live in mine. They are treated with every courtesy, of course. They are honored guests, but they are also prisoners, and both sides know that if the treaty is broken, these guests will be the first to die. It adds a certain personal stake to the proceedings. This constant churn of alliances and betrayals has created a new class of men, the itinerant persuaders. These are the smooth-tongued diplomats and strategists who travel from court to court, their only asset, their wits. They are masters of rhetoric, of political calculation. They will come to me with a brilliant plan for a new alliance, a new scheme to outwit a rival. They will work for me for a time, and then, when a better offer comes along, they will move on, taking all my secrets with them. I admire their audacity, even as I despise their lack of loyalty. The hegemons, those protectors of the Zhou, have tried to impose some order on this chaos. A powerful duke like Huan of Qi or Wen of Jin will force all the smaller states into a grand coalition under his leadership. He will convene great conferences, where he will lecture us all on the importance of unity and loyalty to the king. But these grand alliances are just as fragile as the smaller ones. They are held together by the personal power of a single man, and when he dies, the whole edifice collapses back into a free-for-all. The smaller states are torn to pieces in this diplomatic meat grinder. They are constantly trying to guess which way the wind is blowing, which powerful lord to pledge their allegiance to. They will join one coalition, only to find themselves on the losing side. They will then be forced to join the winning coalition, paying a heavy price in tribute and territory. They are like leaves in a whirlwind, with no control over their own destiny. And the Zhou king, in his gilded cage, he is the ultimate diplomatic pawn. We all fight in his name. We all claim to be acting on his behalf. We will invite him to our conferences to give them a veneer of legitimacy. We will force him to bestow titles and honors on us, to sanctify our conquests. He is the rubber stamp that we all use to approve our own ambitions, a sad, pathetic fate for the Son of Heaven. So when you hear of a new alliance being formed, a new treaty being signed, do not be fooled. It is not a sign of impending peace. It is merely a prelude to the next round of violence. It is a shifting of the pieces on the board, a recalibration of the calculus of power. The only constant in our world is the ambition of men, and that ambition will always eventually shatter any promise, betray any trust, and break any alliance. Support our shifting loyalties. Understand the brutal, elegant dance of our diplomacy. You cannot hope to comprehend this age without grasping the profound cynicism that lies at its heart. Subscribe now. We will teach you how to read the fine print on the treaties, how to see the dagger hidden in the smile of the envoy. The diplomacy of daggers is the highest art form of our time. Do not be a mere spectator, become a connoisseur. Click the button before your own allies decide you've become inconvenient. The language of our diplomacy is a masterpiece of euphemism. We do not invade, we offer fraternal correction to a wayward neighbor. We do not demand tribute, we request a contribution for mutual defense. We do not take hostages, we engage in a cultural exchange of royal children. To listen to our envoys is to believe that we are all honorable men, reluctantly drawn into conflict by the unfortunate actions of others. It is a beautiful fiction. I have a whole stable of scribes and scholars whose only job is to justify my actions. Before I launch a campaign, they will prepare a lengthy document outlining all the ways in which my enemy has violated the ancient rites, insulted my ancestors, and generally behaved in a manner most displeasing to heaven. It is important to have a good pretext. It shows that you are a man of principle, not a mere aggressor. It is a courtesy we extend to each other before we proceed to burn each other's cities. The most amusing part of these diplomatic charades is that everyone knows it's a lie. When I receive an envoy from the state of Qin bearing a letter filled with protestations of friendship, I know that he knows that I know it's all a fabrication. We are like two actors in a play, reciting our lines with perfect conviction while privately acknowledging the absurdity of the script. It is a game, and we are all skilled players. The art lies in discerning the true message beneath the layers of polite language. A gift of jade may be a genuine sign of respect, or it may be a subtle insult if the quality is not up to standard. An invitation to a hunting party may be a chance to strengthen our bond, or it may be an ambush. One must be a master of reading between the lines, of sensing the subtle shifts in tone and emphasis. It is a far more demanding skill than commanding an army. And so we live in a state of perpetual paranoia. Every border is a potential front. Every neighbor is a potential enemy. Every ally is a potential traitor. We build our walls high, we fill our armories with weapons, and we train our spies to be ever vigilant. For in this world, the only thing you can truly rely on is the fundamental self-interest of your fellow man. The common people, of course, pay the price for our diplomatic games. Their lives are disrupted, their lands are ravaged, and their sons are killed, all because of some secret clause in a treaty, some perceived slight in a diplomatic exchange. They have no understanding of the intricate maneuvers of statecraft. They only know that one day they are at peace, and the next day their village is on fire. This is the world we have created, a world without trust, a world where words are weapons and promises are traps. A world where the only law is the law of the strong and the only certainty is the inevitability of betrayal. It is a grim, exhausting, and exhilarating world, and I am its undisputed master. Do not be a pawn in this game. Learn the rules, understand the strategies, see the world through the eyes of a player. Subscribe to this broadcast. It is your only shield against the deceptions of our age. We will arm you with the cynicism you need to survive. We will give you the insight to see the truth behind the lies. The age of chaos is coming, and in that age, the naive will be the first to perish. Join us, and learn to smile while you sharpen your dagger. Enough. Enough reading of the old histories, the sentimental chronicles of the central states with their endless genealogies and their poetic laments for a bygone age. They are useless. They are irrelevant. The future is not being written in the heartland of the Yellow River. It is being forged in the fiery frontiers by men who have no time for poetry. Welcome back, you students of the coming storm, for what is undoubtedly the most critical broadcast of them all. We have spoken of the general decay. Today we name the disease. We speak of the new powers. We speak of Qin and Chu. For centuries, we, the states of the Central Plains, Jin, Lu, Song, Wei, have considered ourselves the center of the world, all under heaven. We are the inheritors of the true Zhou culture. We have the proper rituals, the proper music, the proper manners. We have looked down upon the states on the periphery as semi-barbaric backwaters, populated by savages who barely know how to hold a bronze wine cup correctly. It has been a comforting prejudice, and it is about to get us all killed. While we have been busy with our elaborate court intrigues, our endless debates about ritual and our stylish limited wars, something has been stirring in the wild lands to the west and the south. Two states, long dismissed as uncivilized upstarts, have been quietly, patiently, and ruthlessly gathering their strength. They have been innovating, they have been evolving, and now they are poised to devour us all. Let us speak first of the state of Chu, in the humid, swampy south. We have long called them the southern barbarians. They have their own strange customs, their own incomprehensible dialect. Their rulers had the audacity to declare themselves kings centuries ago, a shocking breach of etiquette that we all found rather amusing. We are not laughing any more. Chu has grown into a behemoth, a vast and wealthy kingdom with a massive and eclectic army. The rulers of Chu are not bound by our fussy Zhou traditions. They have created a flexible, efficient state, incorporating many of the native peoples of the south into their military and bureaucracy. Their armies are a strange and terrifying mixture of chariot-riding nobles, disciplined infantry, and wild hill tribesmen who fight with a ferocity that unnerves my most seasoned veterans. They are a cultural and military melting pot, and the concoction they have brewed is a potent one. Chu's ambition is as vast as its territory. It has already swallowed dozens of smaller states, absorbing their people and their resources. It presses relentlessly northward, testing our defenses, probing for weakness. They fight a different kind of war, a war of annihilation, a war without the customary restraints and civilities that we of the Central Plains have always, foolishly, adhered to. They do not seek to defeat, they seek to consume. But as dangerous as Chu is, it is the other rising power that truly chills my blood, the one that keeps me awake at night, staring into the darkness, the state of Qin, tucked away in the rugged mountainous terrain of the West, the land from which the Zhou themselves originally came. For generations we saw them as little more than horse breeders and border guards, a crude and uncultured people whose only purpose was to keep the nomadic tribes of the steppes at bay. We were wrong. We were fatally wrong. The Qin, nasty lot, all discipline and no poetry, but they win. And that's all that matters these days, very uncultured, very effective. They have embraced the philosophy of the Legalists with a zeal that is both admirable and terrifying. They have systematically dismantled their old aristocracy. They have reorganized their entire state into a ruthlessly efficient machine designed for one purpose and one purpose only: war. In Qin there is no sentiment, there is no tradition other than the tradition of victory. The old feudal ranks have been abolished. A man's status is determined not by his birth, but by the number of enemy heads he can present after a battle. It is a perfect meritocracy of murder. Every farmer is a soldier in waiting. Every official is judged solely on his ability to contribute to the strength of the state. Their laws are simple, clear, and brutal. The rewards for success are great. The punishment for failure is death. There is no room for excuses, there is no place for weakness. They have cultivated a culture of absolute obedience, of fanatical discipline. Their soldiers go into battle with a cold, dead-eyed resolve that I have never seen before. They do not fight for glory or for honor. They fight because it is their job, and they are terrifyingly good at their job. While we in the Central States are still debating the proper way to conduct a chariot charge, the Qin have perfected the art of mass infantry warfare. Their armies are vast, well-organized, and equipped with the best iron weapons. Their generals are not nobles who have inherited their position. They are grizzled veterans who have risen through the ranks by dint of their skill and their ruthlessness. They are masters of logistics, of siegecraft, of psychological warfare. And they are coming. They have already begun to expand eastward, out of their mountain fortress. They have conquered the fertile plains of Shu, giving them a vast new breadbasket to fuel their war machine. They are now pressing on our western borders, and the smaller states are crumbling before them. They do not engage in the elaborate diplomacy of our region. They do not form alliances. They conquer, they annex, they absorb. The contrast between these rising powers and the old states of the heartland could not be more stark. We are like ancient brittle trees, weighed down by the dead wood of our traditions. They are like young hungry forest fires, consuming everything in their path. We are fighting the last war. They are fighting the next one, and the future belongs to them. I have tried to warn my fellow rulers in the Central Plains. I have tried to make them see the danger, but they are complacent, they are arrogant, they are trapped in their own glorious past. They believe that their superior culture, their ancient lineage will somehow protect them. They are fools. Culture does not stop an iron sword. Lineage does not turn back a disciplined army. If you're enjoying this geopolitical power play, if you see the grim, beautiful logic of this new world taking shape, then you must subscribe. You are witnessing the birth of empires, the dawn of a new, more brutal age of history. This is not a story for the faint of heart. This is a story for those who understand that power is the only reality. Please subscribe for more. This is the only briefing that will prepare you for the darkness to come. My spies in Qin tell me stories that are hard to believe. They say that the entire state is administered through a system of prefectures and counties, directly controlled by the central government. This allows the ruler to collect taxes and raise armies with an efficiency that we, with our semi-independent feudal lords, can only dream of. They have standardized their weights and measures. They have even begun to standardize the axle widths of their carts to facilitate the movement of supplies and troops. It is the mind of an engineer applied to the art of conquest. The state of Chu, in its own way, is just as innovative. They have learned to fight on water, developing a powerful navy to control the great rivers of the south. They have mastered the art of amphibious warfare, a skill that is utterly alien to us landlocked states of the north. They are a chimera, a hybrid of Zhou culture and southern barbarian vitality, and that is what makes them so unpredictable and so dangerous. The old powers are fragmenting. The great state of Jin, once the most powerful of us all, has shattered into 3 rival states, Han, Wei, and Zhao. They are now too busy fighting each other to present a united front against the rising threat from the west. This internecine squabbling is a gift to the Jin. They will pick us off, one by one, while we are busy settling old scores. I am caught in the middle. To my south, the sprawling, unpredictable behemoth of Chu. To my west, the cold, disciplined war machine of Qin. To my east and north, my so-called traditional allies, the squabbling, decadent states of the Central Plains. It is a strategic nightmare. I am a mouse trapped between 2 hungry cats, and the other mice are trying to steal my cheese. My only hope is to learn from my enemies. I have begun to implement my own reforms, modeled on the legalist principles of the Qin. I have tried to centralize power, to create a more efficient bureaucracy, to build a more disciplined army. But I face resistance at every turn, from my own nobles who see their traditional privileges being threatened, from my own people who are not accustomed to the harsh discipline of the Qin. I am trying to graft a new, harder shell onto an old, soft body, and the process is a painful one. I have even sent envoys to Chu to explore the possibility of an alliance. It feels like a betrayal of everything my ancestors stood for, to ally with the southern barbarians against the western barbarians. But this is a time for pragmatism, not for sentiment. The enemy of my enemy is, for the moment, my friend, even if he is a friend who might decide to eat me once the common enemy is defeated. The race for supremacy is on, and the Central Plains, for so long the center of the world, have become the primary battlefield. We are no longer the players in this game. We are the prize. The future will be decided by the titans on the periphery, and the winner will be the one who is the most ruthless, the most innovative, and the most willing to abandon the old ways. This is the great turning point of our history, the end of the feudal age, the beginning of the age of empires. It is a terrifying and exhilarating time to be alive, to witness the death of an old world and the birth of a new one, even if that new world is one that will have no place for men like me. So watch the West, and watch the South, for that is where the future is coming from. A future of iron and blood, a future of absolute power, a future that will be built on the ruins of our world, a future that belongs to the disciplined and the ruthless and the uncultured. Do not be left behind in the dustbin of history. Do not cling to the old, comfortable lies. See the world as it is, a brutal, unforgiving arena where new powers are rising to challenge the old. Subscribe. This is your only guide to the new geopolitics of our age. This is your only chance to understand the forces that are reshaping our world and to perhaps, just perhaps, find a way to survive the coming storm. The future is here, and it is not for the faint of heart. Subscribe now. That sound. Do you hear it? It is the sound of the future, the relentless, monotonous, and unstoppable drumbeat of the armies of Qin. This is it, the final broadcast, the last whisper from a world on the brink of extinction. You have been with me through the fall, the chaos, and the desperate, bloody scramble for power. Tonight, we stare into the face of the abyss itself. We look west, to the rising black tide that will drown us all. We speak of the Qin menace, and the terrible final peace they promise to bring us. We have discussed them before, of course. The horse breeders from the western mountains, the uncultured louts who have embraced the cold hard logic of the legalists. But I do not think, even now, that the other states truly understand what they are. They see Qin as just another rival, a particularly strong and unpleasant rival to be sure, but a rival nonetheless. They believe they can be managed, negotiated with, perhaps even drawn into one of our civilized temporary alliances. They are fools. They are dead men, walking in a dream. The Qin don't negotiate, they conquer. They don't compromise, they subjugate. They are not interested in the delicate dance of diplomacy that we have perfected in the Central Plains. They do not send envoys to debate the finer points of ritual propriety. They send generals, they send armies, they send death. Their foreign policy is breathtakingly simple: submit or be annihilated. There is no third option. This terrifying clarity of purpose comes from their guiding philosophy, legalism, implemented with a fanatical devotion by thinkers like Shang Yang a century ago. It is a philosophy that has stripped away every last vestige of human sentiment. In Qin, there is no loyalty to family, only to the state. There is no value in art, only in agriculture. There is no honor in debate, only in battle. They have turned their entire society into a weapon. Every man, woman, and child is a cog in a vast, unthinking, and terrifyingly efficient war machine. Their system is a perfect meritocracy of brutality. Any soldier who brings back the head of an enemy is promoted one rank. It is a simple, elegant, and horrifying calculus. It creates soldiers who are not merely brave, but who are possessed by a ferocious, desperate hunger for slaughter. My soldiers fight for plunder, or for fear of my wrath. The soldiers of Qin fight for personal advancement. They are not an army, they are a swarm of ambitious killers. And their state is organized to support this swarm. The land is divided into prefectures and counties ruled by magistrates appointed directly by the central government. The law is absolute, and the punishments are draconian. A man who fails to report his neighbor's crime is cut in two at the waist. A family whose son deserts from the army is enslaved for 3 generations. It is a system built on mutual suspicion and universal fear. It's unsettling, this unity through universal misery, but perhaps efficient. There is no dissent in Qin. There is no corruption. There is no waste. Every ounce of grain, every sliver of iron, every drop of human sweat is channeled into the service of the state's military ambitions. They have achieved a level of national mobilization that we, with our squabbling nobles and our semi-independent fiefdoms, cannot even begin to comprehend. They are utterly predictable in their unpredictability. They follow no rules but their own. They will honor no treaty that is not to their advantage. In one infamous case, they negotiated a peaceful surrender with an army from the state of Zhou, promising to spare the lives of the soldiers. Once the Zhou army had laid down its arms, the Qin generals had all 400,000 of them buried alive. It was a message to the rest of us, a promise. This is what happens to those who resist. This act of cold, calculated mass murder sent a shockwave through the states. It was a violation of every code of conduct, every shred of decency that had governed our warfare for centuries. It was the act of a monster. But it was also the act of a genius, for it instilled a terror of the Qin that is now their most effective weapon. Many cities now surrender without a fight, rather than risk the fate of the Zhou army. The other great power, the state of Chu, for all its might, is still a recognizable entity. They are ambitious, yes, they are dangerous, yes, but they are still a part of our world. They engage in diplomacy, they form alliances, they have a culture, a court, a sense of style. The Qin are something else. They are an alien force, an engine of conquest that seems to be fueled by nothing more than its own momentum. I have come to a terrible conclusion. The Qin will win. They will conquer us all. They will put an end to this squabbling, chaotic, and vibrant age of the 100 schools of thought. They will extinguish the lights of our culture, the subtleties of our diplomacy, the very memory of our existence. They will unify all under heaven, not by persuasion, not by virtue of a heavenly mandate, but by the simple, brutal application of overwhelming force. They will create a new world, a world of perfect order, a world of absolute obedience, a world without war, because there will be no one left to fight. It will be the peace of the graveyard, the unity of the prison. And in my darkest moments I find myself whispering a terrifying question: is that better than this? Is the peace of total subjugation preferable to the endless, pointless slaughter of our current age? I do not have an answer. All I know is that my time and the time of men like me is over. The age of the cunning warlord, the charismatic duke, the master of the intricate game is coming to an end. The future belongs to the bureaucrat, the logistician, the enforcer of the iron law. The future belongs to Qin. This is my final broadcast. The drums of the Qin army are growing louder. They are no longer a distant threat on the western horizon. They are at my gates. I will not surrender. I will not be buried alive. I will meet them in the field with my army for one last glorious and utterly futile battle. It is the only honorable end left to me. Keep the grim lessons coming. You have been my students, my confidants, my unseen allies in this descent into darkness. Now you must become the chroniclers, the ones who remember that there was once a world of color and chaos before the black tide of Qin washed it all away. Like what you have heard, subscribe to the memory of this age, for when the new histories are written by the victors, our stories will be erased. Your subscription is not just a click. It is an act of defiance. It is a promise to remember. Do it now before the silence falls. My spies who have managed to return from Qin speak of a state that is perpetually mobilized. The farmers work in the fields with their weapons stacked at the ready. The women are organized into production brigades for weaving and sewing military uniforms. The children are taught the laws of the state and the importance of absolute obedience. It is a society that has no concept of peace. It is merely the interval between wars. The Qin have no heroes in our sense of the word. They do not celebrate the chivalrous warrior or the wise scholar. They celebrate the successful general who brings back the most heads. They celebrate the efficient minister who collects the most taxes. Theirs is a purely functional view of human existence. A man is worth only what he can contribute to the power of the state. And what will they do with this power once they have conquered us all? They will build great walls to keep the northern barbarians out. They will build great canals to irrigate their lands. They will standardize our writing, our currency, our laws. They will create a single, unified, and monolithic empire. It will be a marvel of engineering, of administration, and it will be a soulless desert. The rich tapestry of our cultures will be unraveled. The 100 schools of thought will be silenced. The poets will be put to work building roads. The artists will be forced to create monuments to the glory of the Qin Emperor. Everything that makes our world vibrant and interesting and human will be sacrificed on the altar of a brutal, monotonous unity. I have spent my life fighting for my own state, for my own power, for my own legacy. I have been a ruthless, cynical, and often cruel man, but I have always believed in something, in the traditions of my ancestors, in the value of culture, in the idea that there is more to life than mere survival and obedience. The Qin believe in nothing but power. And so, this is where it ends. My last stand. A gesture of defiance against the inevitable. A final, futile affirmation of the world that is about to be lost. I will die on my feet, as a warlord of a proud and independent state, not on my knees, as a gelded servant of the Qin Empire. My only regret is that I will not be there to see the ultimate irony, for the Qin, in their relentless pursuit of order and stability, are creating a system so rigid, so brittle, that it cannot last. A state built on fear alone is a state that is built on sand. They will unify the kingdom, but they will not be able to hold it. Their triumph will be magnificent, and it will be brief, and the chaos that will follow the collapse of their monstrous creation will make our current age look like a golden era of peace and tranquility. So do not despair. The night is coming, a long, dark night of keen domination, but the dawn will come, and when it does, the stories that you have heard here, the memories of our age, will be the seeds from which a new and perhaps better world can grow. This is my legacy, not the cities I have conquered or the armies I have raised, but this broadcast, this final testament, this warning, and this hope. The drums are closer now. I can hear the shouts of their commanders. It is time. Remember us, remember that we lived, that we fought, that we schemed, that we loved, that we built beautiful things, even as we tore the world apart. Remember us, and keep these lessons alive. It is your sacred duty. Subscribe, now, for the last time, subscribe. The age of chaos is over. The age of terror has begun. It is done. A messenger arrived this morning, his horse lathered, his face pale, not with news of a battle or a betrayal, or a new and creative atrocity. News of a death, or rather, a final, quiet snuffing out. King Nan of Zhou, the last son of heaven, has been deposed. The state of Qin has finally, mercifully absorbed the pathetic little patch of land that was all that remained of the royal domain. The dynasty that ruled for nearly 8 centuries is over, and the world barely noticed. There was no great final battle for the capital, no heroic last stand by a loyalist army, no dramatic fiery end. It was an administrative procedure, a foreclosure. The king, it seems, was deeply in debt to some merchants. Qin, in its infinite and terrifying efficiency, simply called in the debt. They marched into his palace, packed up the sacred 9 tripod cauldrons, the very symbols of heavenly authority, and informed the king that his services were no longer required. It was a whimper, the most pathetic anticlimactic whimper in the history of all under heaven. For centuries, the Zhou king has been a ghost at our banquet, a necessary fiction. We fought in his name, we sought his blessing for our conquests, we used his authority as a cloak for our own ambitions. He was the sun, and we, the warlords, were the planets that orbited him, even as we grew larger and more powerful than the star itself. But he was always there, the still point in our turning, violent world, and now he is gone. The king is gone, or nearly, I forget which, does it matter? His territory was a joke, a tiny slippage of land surrounded by hostile states. His army was a ceremonial bodyguard. His pronouncements were ignored by everyone. He was a living ancestor tablet, a relic of a bygone age. And yet, there was a power in his powerlessness. He was a symbol, and symbols matter. They are the glue that holds the world together, even when the world is flying apart at the seams. The mandate has passed. To whom, exactly, is still up for debate, usually settled with more swords. The Qin believe it has passed to them, of course. They have the tripods, they have the power, they have the unshakable conviction that they are the rightful heirs to the mandate, not by the will of heaven, but by the will of their own iron legions. They will try to build a new dynasty on the ashes of the old. But the mandate of heaven is not a bronze pot to be carted off like a piece of plunder. It is an idea, a belief in the hearts of men, and that belief has been shattered. The king's failure was not a personal one. It was a systemic one. The dynasty did not fall because of one bad ruler. It fell because the very idea of a single divinely appointed ruler has become obsolete. We have outgrown it. We have killed it with our ambition and our cynicism. The last few Zhou kings were tragic figures. They went through the motions of rule, they performed the ancient rituals, they received envoys with all the solemnity they could muster, but they were prisoners in their own palaces, puppets dancing on the strings of the most powerful warlords. They were a living embodiment of our hypocrisy. We knelt before them, and then we went back to our own courts and plotted the dismemberment of their kingdom. I remember my one and only visit to the Zhou court as a young man. The palace was dilapidated, the rituals were performed with a kind of weary resignation. The king himself had a haunted look in his eyes, the look of a man who knows he is presiding over a funeral, and that the funeral is his own. It was a profoundly depressing experience. I left with a renewed determination to carve out my own destiny, rather than cling to the rotting corpse of the past. And now the corpse has finally been buried. The last echo has faded. The long, slow, agonizing death of the Zhou dynasty is complete. There is a strange emptiness in the air, a sense of vertigo. For centuries, we have defined ourselves in relation to the Zhou, as loyal vassals, as rebellious subjects, as ambitious rivals. Now we are adrift in a world without a center, a world where there is no authority but the authority of the sword. This is the true beginning of the Age of Chaos, not the endless wars of the past few centuries. That was just the prelude, the overture. Now the main performance begins, the final, brutal, no-holds-barred struggle for the ultimate prize, the right to found the next dynasty, the right to become the new son of heaven. And the contenders are few, the mighty state of Chu, and the terrifying, methodical, and now symbolically legitimized state of Qin. The smaller states, my own included, are now an endangered species. We have no choice but to align ourselves with one of the great powers, to become their vassals, their servants, in the hope of surviving the coming storm. The game has changed. The stakes have been raised, and the odds are not in our favor. The final days of King Nan were, I am told, a study in quiet desperation. He spent his time consulting with astrologers, trying to find some sign of hope in the heavens. He sold off the last of the palace treasures to pay his guards. He even tried to raise a new army, but no one answered his call. The Son of Heaven had become a beggar in his own kingdom, a pathetic, lonely old man, waiting for the inevitable knock on the door. And when the Qin soldiers finally arrived, he did not resist. He simply handed over the royal seal, bowed his head, and accepted his fate. There is a certain dignity in that, I suppose. The dignity of absolute, unconditional surrender. The dignity of a man who finally accepts that the game is over. If you're still processing this monumental shift, this quiet, pathetic end to an 800-year-old dynasty, then you must subscribe. You are a witness to the final turning of a great historical page. The story of the Zhou is over. The story of the coming empires is just beginning. Be sure to subscribe, to follow the grim narrative to its bloody conclusion. This is not just history, it is a lesson in power, in decay, and in the terrible, beautiful finality of the end. The royal domain, once a vast territory stretching across the heartland of the kingdom, had shrunk to the size of a single county. The king's authority extended no further than the crumbling walls of his capital. His subjects were a handful of palace eunuchs, ceremonial guards, and the merchants to whom he owed a fortune. It was a kingdom of ghosts and memories. The Qin, in their brutal pragmatism, saw no need for a dramatic final confrontation. They simply treated the king as a failed debtor. They sent their magistrates, not their generals. They presented him with legal documents, not with an ultimatum of war. They dismantled the dynasty with the cold, impersonal efficiency of a tax collector. It was a calculated insult, a final humiliation. And what of the mandate of heaven? The Qin have a new interpretation. They believe that heaven grants the mandate not to the most virtuous, but to the most powerful. That order, not justice, is the primary concern of the cosmos, and that the state that can unify the world by whatever means necessary is the state that has the true favor of heaven. It is a terrifying and perhaps an accurate philosophy. The other states are now in a panic. They are sending frantic messages to each other, trying to form a grand coalition to resist the Qin. But it is too late. The serpent of Qin has already swallowed the head of the kingdom, and it will not be long before it swallows the rest of us. We are disunited, we are suspicious of each other, and we are terrified. A perfect recipe for defeat. I have made my choice. I will not join the futile resistance. I will not bow my head to the Qin. I will remain here, in my own domain, and I will build my walls high. I will forge more swords. I will train more soldiers. I will create my own small island of defiance in the coming Qin Ocean. It is a fool's hope, perhaps, but it is the only hope I have left. The story of the last Zhou king is a cautionary tale, a lesson in the impermanence of power, a reminder that no dynasty, no matter how glorious, can last forever. The wheel of history turns, and those who are on top today will be crushed beneath it tomorrow. It is the one inescapable truth of our world. So let us raise a final cup of wine to the ghost of the Zhou, to the memory of a time when there was order, when there was ritual, when there was a center to our world. Let us mourn its passing, and then let us turn to the business at hand, the business of survival, the business of forging a new world from the ruins of the old. For the death of the Zhou is not just an end, it is also a beginning. It is the clearing of the board for the final game, a game that will be played with higher stakes, with greater brutality, and with a more terrifying prize than ever before. The age of chaos is not over. It has just entered its final, most spectacular phase. Do not be a victim of this change. Be a student of it. Understand the forces that have brought us to this point, and understand the forces that will shape the future. Subscribe to this broadcast. It is your only guide through the coming darkness. It is your only hope of understanding the new world that is being born in the crucible of our ambition and our despair. This is the end of the beginning, and the beginning of the end. Join us, for the story is far from over, and the worst, my friends, is yet to come. So, we come to the end, the last dying ember of this broadcast, a flickering light in the encroaching darkness. The war drums you hear are no longer distant. They are the heralds of the new age, the pounding heart of the coming storm. Over the course of our little talks, we have dissected the corpse of this dying dynasty, and we have found the maggots of ambition, betrayal, and innovation writhing within. We have chronicled the long, agonizing, and often darkly amusing fall of the House of Zhou. We began with the fading glory of the king, that expensive trophy on a puppet string, a symbol whose meaning has been bled dry by the very men who pretended to honor it. We watched as his loyal vassals, the dukes and marquises, grew fat and bold in their fiefdoms, their loyalty curdling into a voracious appetite for their neighbor's land. The polite fiction of feudal obligation has been torn asunder, revealing the naked, grasping ambition that was always lurking beneath. We charted the evolution of our bloody craft, from the quaint chivalrous duels of bronze-clad nobles in their fancy chariots to the grim, efficient slaughter of massed infantry armed with cold, hard iron. We learned that honor is a poor shield against a disciplined line of spears, and that victory belongs not to the most virtuous, but to the most ruthless. We spoke of betrayal, that highest of the new art forms, and saw how an alliance is merely a prelude to a well-timed stab in the back. We waded through the philosophical swamp of our times, listening to the babble of the 100 schools of thought. The Confucians, with their wistful dreams of a bygone age of virtue. The Taoists, with their sensible advice to simply walk away from the whole bloody mess. The Mohists, with their tragically naive belief in universal love. And the Legalists, the only ones who truly understand the new currency of power, fear, and the unblinking application of force. We stood before the walls of besieged cities and breathed in the stench of despair and slow starvation. We saw how the grand strategies of warlords are paid for with the lives of common people, their bodies the fuel for our ambitions, their suffering the silent chorus to our triumphs. We have seen how civilization itself, my own included, is a fragile, expensive, and jealously guarded luxury built upon a foundation of bones. And we have seen the future. We have seen it in the disciplined, merciless legions of Qin, that great black tide rising in the west. We have seen it in the savage vitality of Chu in the south. These are the new powers, the architects of the coming age, who will sweep away the last vestiges of our decadent squabbling world and forge a new one in the fires of total war. We even witnessed the final pathetic snuffing out of the Zhou royal line, a dynasty that ended not with a bang but with the quiet scratching of a debt collector's pen. Unfortunately, the sun sets on the age of gentle warfare and rises on an era where only the strong and the utterly ruthless will survive. This has been General Wei, your humble and increasingly blood-spattered broadcaster from the final days of the Zhou. We saw the steel clash, felt the sting of betrayal, and witnessed the mandate of heaven shatter, giving way to utter chaos. If this desperate, darkly humorous transmission from the very brink of empire has given you a moment of grim amusement, or a profound appreciation for your own era's relative lack of daily incursions, then my purpose is served. Keep listening, keep questioning, and for the sake of whatever order might eventually emerge, keep that subscribe button pressed, because even when the world descends into anarchy, the stories and the occasional strategic chuckle endure. Until the next broadcast, from a new, hopefully less fractured empire, Zaijian, farewell. Static overtakes the voice entirely, fading into the relentless, rhythmic beat of a single ominous war drum. Then, silence.